Hey guys, it's your boy Trini Bulk here. I'm joined by a friend and one of my more longtime viewers. Do you want to introduce your name, or you want to be anonymous, or what do you want to do?
Nah, we can introduce my name. It's fine. This is Jermar. Some of y'all might know me from old MK11 days, Fujin and Scorpion main. Hadn't been on MK1. I don't like it, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. The difference in how me and Cherney view the gameplay of MK1.
Yeah, basically, Jared's come on today because he wants to make some counterpoints to some of the things they've said in defense of the game from a gameplay standpoint. And I just thought, well, why not record it for the channel? That's fighting game YouTube, right? It's all about who can yap the most. So I might as well take advantage to turn the yapping into something. So that's basically what we're going to talk about. We're having a discussion today about differences about the feeling of the gameplay of MK1. And when we're talking about that, we're not actually talking about any trivial horseshit. We're actually talking about as a competitive fighter. That's what we're addressing this on. So anyway, I'll let you go first. I mean, I feel like the nature of the conversation kind of means you got to go first.
Okay. So I do and have watched your videos for a long time, as well as the podcast with Rio, M2 Dave, and Tom Brady. And the the biggest counterpoint that I have had to a lot of what you say about the gameplay of MK1, like you said that it's the best gameplay of any of the NRS titles. And I think that is subjective. I would counter that by arguing what it is that you're looking for in the gameplay, because I think that they do offer more layers to the offense and the defense. But I think the problem with UK1 is that the layers are too rewarding at each level, as well as the fact that instead of them having a clear, defined focus for which layer is the dominant layer of the meta, every layer is just extremely powerful. And some
Okay.
people would argue that that's a freedom of expression or being able to do something, but it just doesn't seem like that went the way that they wanted it to go. Like every character more or less turned into a mix-up slash set play character for the most part.
Okay. So, how do I start with this? Um, okay. So, first, I feel like before I start, I need to talk about comparing what you said to what I have been majorly told by people. Okay, so my understanding of the reasons that people dislike the game, for the most part, from a gameplay standpoint, is I am told all the time, for example, that this game has no depth to it whatsoever, to the point where people have tried to tell me there's no higher level of MK1. I mean, that is just objectively untrue when you really dig into the matchups in this game. Are there some characters that are simplistic to a toxic degree? That's definitely true. I mean, I think everyone can agree Homelander is kind of embarrassing to have your game, right? But for the most part, I do think that the game is pretty good as far as how the layers are rewarded. Now we did talk about before the call started, about my point about the NRS jab, about how the NRS jab is too rewarding, and obviously it is, but when I talk about the games, I talk about them realistically in terms of what might actually happen, right? So I'm not going to talk about changing that as a realistic option because I just don't think they want to listen when it comes to that. So I have to offer alternatives, right, that are realistic to what they're doing. But as far as NRS design standard goes, I do think this game is a lot better than at least 11 and 9. X is a game where you can tell whether you like it or not, you can tell what they wanted to make with X, right? I think there's nobody who questions what type of fighting game at the highest level they wanted that game to be. Would you agree with there?
Um,
Uh,
I wouldn't disagree with that. Um, I would say two things. The first is that you pointed out specifically that the gameplay of MK1 is obviously better than 11 and 9.
yeah,
I think that when you say better, you're speaking from a point of has more depth, right? So I think that one does have a lot more depth than 11 and 9, but what I personally think is that what they were aiming to do with 11 specifically was more or less return to quote unquote footsies, right? So if you look at how Street Fighter is played, and I'm going to use X11 and Street Fighter 6 as kind of comparison points
all right,
for MK1. So if you look at how Street Fighter 6 is played, it's not a very mix heavy game. There is a mental stack.
yeah,
There's hey, are you gonna get caught trying to walk back by a low forward? Are you gonna get caught by a crouching light kick? Are you gonna get tick thrown? Are you gonna get, you know, eaten up by plus frames into a trade combo, or are you gonna allow somebody to steamroll you? Like, there's all these different things to think. Are they gonna jump? Are they gonna try to do a anti-air DP? Or are they gonna try to use anti-air button or anti-air parry? For Akuma specifically, like are you jump fireball? Like, there's a lot of mental stack, but the game itself does not devolve into overhead low 50-50, right? Whereas with MKX, it did, and with a lot of MK1, it also does. A lot of, I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of it is that. I think how the difference is, or part of the difference in that is, one, it's a back to block game versus a block button game.
yeah, it
But
makes difference.
there's also a much more heavy emphasis on checking movement as well as hit confirming properly, where that's not really the focus with NRS games. Now, if we're going to compare this to 11, I think 11 tried to do this, and I'm not going to say that 11 was the perfect game. I think 11 did try to focus more on footsie. It's just that they focused so much on it that the only thing that was powerful was layer one, striker throw.
Right, yeah,
Everything else, there was no depth to it. It was just who was better at guessing striker throw, and the layer one was so powerful that it was who can flawless block the best, or OS so that you can flawless block and throw tech the best.
right, yeah, I would
And
agree with that. Yeah,
that in and of itself is what was ultimately, in my opinion, the downfall of MK11, was that it was so simple that once you figured that out, the game just became who can OS the best in these situations. All of the other issues that people quote unquote had with like rolls and breakaway, and all of those things were, from my opinion, easily baitable and kind of readable, but
yeah, like
it didn't.
it was more things that were downstream of the strike throw problem. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like it's too simplistic, and I think that them trying to add more layers with MK1 is a good thing, but when you add those new layers, you can't have every layer be as powerful as it is.
Right.
And you also still, the game's meta kind of still shifted to going in one direction, which is where you see these strong characters who have certain things that make them strong characters, or strong cameo pairings that make any character strong. Like, most of the cast can be really, really good with, or could be really, really good with at one point, Chameleon. And when Tremor came out, it was like everybody was with Tremor. So the game still somewhat devolved into what can we do to focus on whichever layer is the strongest right now. Whereas with Street Fighter 6, there's still, the whole cast is being used. And even the characters that are looked at as the weakest, like Lily, are being used and winning and placing in these higher level tournaments.
Right. Well, yeah, when it comes to like character usage and shit like that, partially I just don't. I can imagine I don't have an argument to make. Part of it is like, part of it I will say, I still think there's a problem that the NRS community has mentality-wise when it comes to like playing games. Like, I legitimately think NRS is a community where you can have a game where there's like a meta-changing piece of tech that would be found by other communities, but it just never gets found by NRS players, and then it gets found like 5 years later after the game's dead and buried. I think that that's a thing that happens a lot with NRS games. And I know that you and I agree about like there's definitely a mentality difference or something with NRS players compared to other fighting game scenes. So yeah, I can't argue with that. Obviously, Street Fighter 6 works, right? I think literally every character in the game. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at this point, literally every character in the game has won something. They have like
Correct.
some kind of significance to it. So yeah, like I get what you're saying from there. I can't argue that the balance necessarily is better than like that when it comes to one. But I also will say I can't just give it up and say that means I'm incorrect because of how the NRS community is in of itself. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Correct. So I agree with that. Like I saw a lot of the NRS community when they decided to move over to Street Fighter 6, coming from MK11, jump to Ken when Ken was one of the best characters in Street Fighter 6, and then they played Ken for about 3 months, and then when Ken got nerfed, they all stopped playing the game entirely instead of learning a different character or just working around it. And Ken is still a strong character in the game.
Yeah.
Like, he's not.
Yeah.
He didn't get nerfed to bottom 5. He got nerfed from like top 3 to maybe top 10.
Top.
You know what I'm saying? So,
I was gonna say top 3, like top 5. Yeah, something like that. I keep up with Street Fighter, so yeah, I'm aware. I know Ken players are like the Sub-Zero players of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
To focus on MK1 specifically, like I said, I do think that part of what makes the gameplay, for me, in my opinion, makes it not good, is that there is, on one hand, there's too much homogenization of how every character plays because of the cameo system. Because instead of, and this could be a community thing, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know if it's a community thing or a game thing, but because of the fact that so many of the players flock to 1, 2, or 3 cameos, and that's all that you see, that's all that's played, is those 1, 2, or 3 cameos. It's not the
Yeah, I know what you're
diversity
saying.
of what the game could be is filtered by that. But there are other things inherently about, I guess specifically NRS games entirely, that I just don't agree with. And one of those things would be like jailing. I think jailing is the stupidest thing in the world.
Okay, why is that? I don't have an opinion about it one way or another. Like, my mentality is just like it's part of how the games work. But I mean, like, I don't see what would hurt by keeping it in or removing it. I don't really know what the point of scrutinizing that is.
So in almost every other fighting game that I've ever played, if you have 14 frames of hit advantage and you have a button that's 10 frames, it naturally combos.
Okay.
I think NRS is the only game franchise that I've played where it's not that way. You have to hope that your opponent is, instead of blocking, trying to mash. And I think that them designing the game that way brings on more problems than it solves. So one of the big issues in MK11 was, especially on the game's initial release, was poke mashing. Like a lot of the casual audience was really upset about poke mashing. They were like, oh, this person's mashing out their down one, their down one is -2. I got a 7-frame down one, I try to down one back as a reversal, and their down one beats mine out, or they backdash, or whatever, because it's so low negative frames. So how did they fix that with MK1 and with later parts of MK11? They made low pokes a lot higher negative frames, right?
Yeah.
There were a select few characters that could just flat out full combo punish down ones in MK1.
Or you mean in MK11?
And MK1. In MK1, there were characters that released with down ones that were -10, and Johnny Cage has a 9-frame mid. There were characters that had -8 down ones, and Lee May had a 6-frame reversal that she could just throw out anytime you do down one, and being able to full combo what was supposed to be someone's safest option. When I say full combo, I'm not talking about a scaled combo, because that was a thing in MK11. You could reversal up to it after a flawless block if you caught it, right? And I don't agree with reversal up twos as a concept. I think the reversal should have just been locked behind the up three.
Yeah.
That's a story for another time. But in MK1, that full combo, like you're throwing out what's supposed to be your safest option, barring you whiffing that button. Because if you whiff a low poke or a crouching jab in even Street Fighter and someone catches it, you're about to explode, right? So I think barring you whiffing it, it should have been low negative frames. That's not how it is. Like every poke was supposed to be specifically designed to be punished, at least by another low poke in MK1.
Yeah, well,
what does that solve?
I think that I don't know why in the fuck they did that, because to tell you the truth, like, here's my thing. I entirely think that is almost like, that was like a nostalgia play at the OG players, because that was one thing like in MKX that was complained about, was that down ones and stuff weren't punishable, right? Now, I can't remember. I don't think they ever made any pokes more punishable in MK1. They just made them have worse blocks done so you could actually counter poke. So I kind of think, honestly, they did it because it was like that in MK9, and people have been complaining about not being able to punish pokes with pokes for forever, you know. I personally thought it was kind of stupid, and it was an easily solvable issue too, because then what you do, then you just make all the down ones -8, and then you make them 7-frame startup. And now, as far as punishing, like Lee May, which, yeah, she can still do that, by the way, if you didn't know, being able to do stuff like that, to me, though, I look at that as something like, well, that's like a character identity thing, if she's able to do that, and I don't consider the risk reward of that to be like unreasonable. So first of all, the problem is, if you don't know this, like with Lee May, you cannot react and just reversal out with her cartwheel kick, her EX cartwheel kick. You can't just react to being down ones, blocking it, and then doing the reversal. You kind of have to buffer it ahead of time. So, like a Lee May who knows how to do that, there are ways to bait that out that outstrip the reward that she's going to get, right? If she's wrong, she loses a bar, and she loses, like, you know, let's be frank, 40 to 50%, right? Whereas the cartwheel, her EX cartwheel, first of all, it already puts them in the air, so it's scaled from the get-go. And I think the most she's able to get off of it is like 29 to 30% meterless. And she doesn't really have ways to extend the damage. Like, maybe if she has you cornered, she can use lanterns, for example. But, like, I always saw that as a character identity thing, and I thought that was fine. Like, I think the poking is fine for the most part. And I know what the rationale of, like, the jailing is. And I think it works in concept, is that, you know, part of their way of designing around defensive power is who gets the best jailing situations, because mostly it's going to be most important when you're on the back foot and you interrupt somebody's flow state with a down 1 or a down 3, right? So defensive characters, or, you know, those who are archetypes to be defensive, are going to tend to have strings that are ideal for jailing, that have better benefits in those defensive kind of ways, right? Like Johnny Cage, if he gets a down 1, he's not really getting anything out of it, right? He doesn't have any mix, and you can flawless block, OS, all of his strings on the second hit, so he can't chip you, right? So, like, if he down ones you, he's absolutely forced to do just like forward 4 for the mid, or forward 3, I forget what it is right now. I think it's forward 3 actually. The forward 3 mid, or he has to bet the forearm on a throw, and that's kind of like all you can do, right? And that means also he's taking a higher statistical risk when he wants to, like, get his turn back, right? Like if he's cornered and he down one somebody, all he can do is mid or throw. There's not very many options, and if either option is wrong, he's kind of in a bad situation because he either definitively loses his turn or something like that, and his only ways to steal further layers of turns are to meter dump on expensive things like 2-bar invincible nut punch, right?
Mm.
So if you look at like Smoke, for example, right, Smoke is a character who I think has like a higher defensive power level. The way he makes use of the jailing system is like an entirely different thing because he has the ability. First of all, he has a standard stand one jail that has a lot of pushback on it after you block it, even if you flawless block it, which gives him room to play around with. Like he gets a bar to play around with in mid screen. Depending on the cameo he's using, he jails into a lot of the plus frame cameo moves where a lot of characters don't. So like he can get absolutely guaranteed plus frames on block if he jails and the string is blocked. He can also use the condition the like mental frame advantage of that into he can do like down one into forward four, then be plus 12 right in front of their face, right? Characters, a lot of other characters in the roster, they don't have layered jailing mind games like that. And I think jailing, that is a huge part of the way defense is factored into the games in general. Now, I don't like it per se. I will say that. I think it's kind of a silly concept, but I also get that they're trying to make like a 2.5D game. And I mean, in a 3D game, you don't get comboing lows unless they're, flats to be a combo below. And that's always been MK's identity anyway. It's always been a 2.5D game as far as the logic of what they make. So, like, I can kind of understand the issue, but I don't at the same time because, like, I've just always applied a lot of Tekken logic. But then, like I said, it turns out once you really dig into it, that there's a lot more depth to the mind games that go around the whole jailing paradigm that the game has. If anything, I like the fact that they doubled down on it from MK11 into MK1. That's one of the few MK11 isms in this game that I like. And yeah, I don't know. I think it adds depth. I think that a character, and as far as I know, still to this day, it's only one character. I think one character being able to punish that is like not a big deal, especially because, I mean, listen, if it were that big of a deal that she could do that, she would be winning more tournaments and shit, right? But she doesn't, and it's notoriously hard to do those down one on block punishes. They're spacing dependent. Like I said, they require reads in the first place. You can't just react. Same thing for any string that ends in -6. Any string that ends in -6, it's still the same thing. You can't just react to those strings and do your reversal. So, like, I don't think that's too much of a big deal. Like, if this were like MK11, where you had like a whole class of characters that was their entire thing was they launched every down one in the game, I would 100% agree with you, but we don't have that in this game. And the one instance of it to me is really conditional. So, like, to me, that's why it's fine. Like, I get where you're coming from, but I do think that jailing at least the MK1 is a concept. I think it does serve to make the game a better game overall. Now, I have said before, and I think you've seen me write up things about this before. I have said before, maybe a counter hit down one or a counter hit down three should give you a like super scale combo. I would take that.
Okay.
But like personally, I don't see how it hurts the game to have jailing. Like a thing I know that you and I both don't like that I think is easily agreeable is combo breakers. I don't think anybody likes combo breakers.
They should not exist.
I think combo breakers are always put in as like this. What's the word I want to use? Or the term I want to use? It's like ego padding for people who are like not good at fighting games. But the problem is you always see it work out in the opposite way every time. As soon as you get someone into a fighting game that has a combo breaker, and they learn the game and get good at it, they immediately start to see the problems of having a combo breaker in there. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's there for like a very specific niche class of person that I'm not even sure there's that many of. Like I'm not even
I
sure casuals or even semi-casuals would care that much about whether or not there's a combo breaker in your game. I've never met anybody, super hyper casual or not, who like that factored into whether they wanted to give the game a try or not.
I I I disagree with that. I think that from my experience, NRS does have, I'm not gonna say the most casuals. I think Street Fighter still has more casuals by player count right now. There are a lot
Yeah,
more
for sure.
people competing for Street Fighter, but there's also a ton of people who simply play
Right,
because it is the newest Street Fighter, and Street Fighter carries a lot of weight with its name. And I'm not, it's not to say that Mortal Kombat doesn't. I know that they do as well.
right.
But I think that if we look at percentage, I think that more of the people that play Mortal Kombat are casual versus competitive
Oh yeah,
versus
for
Street
sure.
Fighter's percentage being more competitive versus casual. Um, and
Wow.
I think a part of the problem with that is that NRS caters to the casual audience, and this goes to the breaker that you were just bringing up. Like, I
Yeah,
don't agree with combo breakers of any form, in any way, shape, form, or fashion. The
yeah. I don't
only
like them.
reason, yeah, the only reason I preferred the breakaway from MK11 versus breaker in MK1 is because I looked at it kind of like how burst works in Strive,
Yeah,
where it's something you can bait, and if I bait it and lead you and you try to break away, now you're not only going to eat more damage, but you're also going to give me Oki, and you have to hold the next combo when I open you up. But I was privileged in playing characters that kind of excelled at that, or using setups that protected me from breakaway so that I could always do that, which
right,
is something that apparently was not very common with that game. Which
right.
brings me to MK1. I hate Breaker because it doesn't feel as baitable, but it also feels like there's so much less counterplay for it,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
always been the problem with the, like, I understand like why you might from that perspective argue in like favor of breakaway, right? Now I don't like any measure unless it does like have 100% like counterplay to it. That's my thing basically is I think like I'm pretty liberal I guess when it comes to that. My perspective or standard is like as long as I can bait out what you tried to do, even if the
right,
reward's not equal to the thing you tried to do, that's all I care about. I just have to be able to make the mental play and be right. That's all I care about, right?
right,
And yeah, the thing is too, I also don't think breakers do a single thing for like resource management, deepening resource management, because I know you long enough to know you're a smart guy, and I'm sure you see this too. All that turns into is some people's characters got to save all their meter for the breaker, and then some characters just don't have to give a fuck. That's what it turns
right,
into.
right,
Like there is no resource management. There's just the characters spend their meter differently in the most autopilot kind of sense imaginable. Now, yeah, like if our breakers, or it's like KI for example, they had counter breakers, I would be all for having them in the game. But yeah, also, I mean, I gotta be honest, especially at MK1 right now, there's nothing about like the standard set play in the game that is so good that we need a combo breaker. I have to say, like the game is not that casino that you need a combo breaker mechanic.
I so I think, well, this speaks to another part of the gameplay aspect of MK1 that I don't particularly enjoy. Breakers are in the game, which again I don't agree with. Um, and then there's this weird dichotomy where I think two things are true at the same time. I think that the game is not punishing enough, but also too punishing.
No, I mean
So
that's the thing I said about MK11 a lot, and there are some instances in which that is true. Unfortunately for you, because I know you like you at least think MK11 is better than this game. I think that is 100% in a MK11ism. That is one of the things I don't like about this game. I think that's all like inherited from that game.
is the fact that it's not punishing enough, but also too punishing at the same time.
Right, like
So
the not the risk reward. What's the word I want to use? Well, I don't know if you watch a lot of Diaphone, but
I
Diaphone
do.
talks about a concept in probability and statistics called expected outcome,
Hmm.
and that's what it sounds like. It's like given all the measures, what kind of results should you expect to get out of this situation? And I do think when it comes to expected outcome, NRS is kind of cooked. I think part of that, I'm going to say this, part of that, in my opinion, absolutely has to do with the way that they handle, like, frame data, right? Like at other games, they all have their frame data calculated out to such a point where there's like classes or degrees of lack of safety, right? Like in
Hmm.
Tekken, you are mostly not getting launched until you're minus 15. That's like a hard rule the devs designed the game around, right?
Hmm.
Whereas in MK1 or any NRS game, even MK11, depending on what you did, you're getting noteworthy damage from like the most basic layer one decision, like we have talked about already, right?
Right.
That's one thing I've talked about before. Is I think they need to standardize their frame data across like the entire series. Like they need to just make rules. Now it's weird to me because obviously they have some rules, right? They mostly stuck to jabs are fast to 7 frames with exceptions, sword down ones. You know, even though people don't like the differing health mechanics, like so far there's been a consistent logic, even if it's the wrong one as far as like who gets what and how much as far as health goes. So yeah, I definitely agree there's instances of that in this game for sure. Especially when it comes to like mix, for example. Like my thing has always been, and you know, I know like I think people think I'm like talking like I'm the shit and I'm smarter than everybody. To me, this stuff is just obvious. Like, I think, for example, if you have, like, let's say a strong layer one unreactable mix up, I don't care if it's like striker command grab or like 50-50, right? Low overhead. I think if I guess right on that layer one full combo stirring 50-50 every time, I should get a full combo out of it, right? Now, I think safety is more reasonable the deeper into the Yomi you get. Okay, so like if someone has to get you like 2 layers deep before they can even threaten like a legitimately powerful mix-up, then maybe it's fine if those options are even safe, right? Because in my mind, you had 2 layers of gameplay to get through before you even got there, right? Like, does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, and I think that speaks to um, some of what I said, but it also speaks to the fact that NRS does not know, from my perspective, they do not know how to make a game with layered structures that make sense. Because
Yeah, that's the thing I've said. That's
what
the
I've
thing I've
noticed
said
from
before. I
most of their
agree.
games,
Yeah,
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 most of their games, the layers, whichever layer the highest level of player finds for the game itself is the one that most of the community follows, and that's just the layer that defines the meta.
right.
Whereas with like even with again comparing MK1 to its peer right now, Street Fighter 6, everyone's like, oh, this game is just low forward jab, strike throws, low forward jab, strike throws. Yes, that's a very big part of the game,
Yeah,
but some of the better characters that have come out recently, Elena and Sagat, don't have and Sea Viper, they don't have a low forward drive rush.
Yeah, I
So
really like the way I like the
play that
season
game.
3 character DLC design a lot in
And they
Street Fighter
they
right now.
can't they can't play that game, but even the characters that can still play that game have other things that they can do. Like shimmying is still a very huge part of Street Fighter, and I think the way shimmying works in Street Fighter is so much better than the way that it works in NRS titles, and I think that has to do with how you tech throws in one game versus the other, which is another thing that I disagree with as far as NRS games go. I think that the way that you tech throws can be too safe. I think it should have to be a higher commitment option, like one or two, down one or down two, or down three or down four to tech forward or backwards. The only one of those that's like a really, really, really risky thing to tech with is down two. So most people are just going to try to tech with down four or down three. And if you have a down four that's a long reaching down four, you're almost never going to get shimmy. It's almost like when Street Fighter 5, I think it was, had crouch tech OS.
No, that's Street Fighter 4. You think you have those crouch tech OS?
Yes. But
Yeah.
it's almost like that. It's like there's almost no risk to ever trying to just tech a back throw or a forward throw if you're always going to tech with your low post. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So I do think a lot of that has to do with, I'm going to tell you, I think a big part of it might actually come down to game engine problems, like the engine that Street Fighter runs on compared to like MK. I think it would turn out that that's a big part of the issue, is that it's just simply like a software problem, like it's a coding issue. And I know, because Tom and others have said this multiple times, that part of the problem with NRS as a developer is they don't have any code-based legacy, meaning whenever these contractors that are only temporary in the first place get fired from their leave, their knowledge is just going out the door. So whenever a new programmer gets hired there, they have to be trained up immediately, or they have to learn on the fly. This could probably also explain why their games are so buggy sometimes.
Right.
Because yeah, like their organization is pretty awful. It seems like it's always been awful. I gotta tell you, like, Tom has stories about NRS from the times he's like gone there that really are no different from like what you and I talk about today. It seems like it's always been a thing with them, unfortunately.
So I guess my question, or some of my questions to you would be, I have a vision for what I think NRS could do, or what MK2 or 12 or 13 or whichever one they're going to go to. I have a vision for what.
Oh, by the way, sorry, before you go on, one thing I will say about the way that NRS handles throws, I have said if they're going to leave them the way that they are, I do think maybe there would be legitimate arguments, since the 50-50 on the throw is also unseeable. Maybe they should consider that you get a full combo punish when you take a throw.
I don't agree with that. I think giving the person who tech the throw frame advantage would be fine. I don't think giving me a full combo.
Oh, you do have frame advantage in MK when you take a throw. For sure.
I don't know that to be true. Most throws that I've seen from most games just reset you back to neutral. It's 0 on both sides, but I would prefer that.
Oh, I'll just see if I can find it, but like, I'm not bullshitting you. Like, we have, from PC players who have looked at the frame data, you're approximately +3 or 4 when you tech a throw.
Yeah, I think that. So again, I'm gonna compare it to its peer, Street Fighter 6.
Yeah.
I think I would put that more in the category or vein of what happens when you backdash a throw in Street Fighter 6, which I think across the board should reward you with at least a medium, which means that you need to be at least +7 across the board in order for every character to be able to cash out. That
Yeah.
that's not the case. There are a lot of characters who backdash and they're either +3 or 4, and it's like I made this hard read on this throw, and my reward for it is maybe a jab, maybe if my jab reaches, which in a lot of cases it doesn't. You know, I could have gotten shimmied and blown up for it. So
Yeah, I get what you're
I think
saying.
that kind of falls under that. Man, I think it should be either more frame advantage, or there needs to be a bigger reward, whether it be the way that they handled Jackie Briggs in MK11. When she takes a throw, she has the opportunity to like throw you back,
Um,
which I thought was one of the cooler mechanics in the game. I think that was cool, but
a lot of
just taking the
people,
throw and not getting anything for it, especially with, like you said, like it being an unseeable 50-50 and you have to decide left or right.
yeah,
I think that there does need to be more reward for that. But again,
I
my
do
thought
think it's
process is
funny.
that throws need to be reworked entirely.
I do think it's funny by the way you mentioned that. Everyone forgets this is even in the game. You know that Johnny Cage has that, right?
Where he can throw you back for taking your throw.
Yes.
Never seen anybody do it.
He,
Not once.
I know, but he can do it. He does some damage, and it puts your cameo on cooldown for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But no one
Never
uses
seen
it.
anybody do it.
Yeah, no one's ever done it in a match. But okay, I get what you're saying there. But I mean, I don't know how though my suggestion of making throws reward you with full combo punishes that maybe your like scale doesn't work. I mean, it kind of abides by like the rules I set, right? It's a layer 1 unreactable 50-50. So I
Right.
think it should have a lot more risk than usual. So I think getting a scaled combo off a techie throw is a pretty good trade-off, in my opinion. Especially like in this game where they have throw combos, it makes more sense to do that. But yeah, I do think the way they handle throws in general, though, it's always been kind of sus anyway. And yeah, I don't think it adds much to the game the way they do it. But like I said, I'm just working in terms of like, well, I don't know if they'll ever rework their entire philosophy around throwing. So like, I don't even know if I want to go in that direction. Because like when it comes, because I even had deep thoughts on this to begin with, to tell you the truth. When it comes to throwing, my whole thing is like, it either needs to be like, it either needs to have like a DOA style triangle system, or you need to like have your throws be 50-50 like they are in MK, except unlike Tekken, maybe they could try to do this. How would you feel if it became like Tekken, where the back and forward throws had different animations stored up, so you had to react to that?
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I also think that I'll say that I think that part of the issue is that they keep sitting in the middle. So you've mentioned this a couple of times already. They're a 2.5D fighting game.
Right.
They want to create archetypes, but they also want everybody to have freedom of expression and be able to play however they want to play. They've given nearly everybody for this game throw combos, which I totally disagree with. I don't think throw combos should be a thing at all. I think that if you're going to give someone,
so you
more
don't
damage
even like
off
them in
the
like
throw,
you even like them in like S&K games or like tag games. You just don't like them, period.
I don't like them because, so my thought process behind not liking throw combos is throws are supposed to be the way that you open your opponent up to getting struck, right?
Right.
If you're playing the layer 1 game, it should be, hey, I'm gonna have this medium damaging option, or I'm gonna have this big damaging option. Which one do you want to take? And if I put you in a situation where you have to choose between the two, I have to be able to enforce whichever one I want effectively. I can throw, like, part of the stupidest thing in the world to me is like people complaining about throw loops in Street Fighter 6. Sure, they're boring. Sure, they're uninteractive. Sure, I think the one big thing that I don't like about them is the fact that they're so effective because of the fact that the entire time that someone is throw looping you, they're not doing it because they want to enforce Oki or shimmy you. They're doing it because they just want to rebuild their drive. Like that's
Right.
my biggest gripe with it is that hey, you spent 4 bars of drive, which is a big investment on one combo to push me to the corner, and now instead of you doing something to continue your pressure or your offense, you're gonna use your throw loop as like a drive gauge battery and just kind of pretend like, oh, I'm just outplaying you. That is the only aspect of it I don't like.
Yeah,
Everything else,
it's
hey, if I knock you down, you have to guess strike or throw. That's just the nature of fighting. Is you if I knock you down with Oki, let me say that. If I knock you down with Oki, if I knock you down halfway across the screen, I made that choice. That's different. But if I knock you
right.
down with Oki, you have to guess between strike or throw. Um, that's that's just how I view it.
Right. I
I
get what
don't
you're
think that
saying.
the throw, yeah, I don't think that the throw should be as rewarding that I can cash out again, unless there's a specific situation like Zangief. He's a grappler. His throws do more damage. That's fine, right? He has a whole variety of throws that he can do that do a lot more damage. But when it comes to a regular character, why are you getting 35, 40% off of his throw?
Right. Yeah,
Right? Like
I get what you're saying. Um, yeah, I perfectly understand like your logic there, but I mean the fact of the matter is, in MK1 though, there is no throw that is just as rewarding as a strike, unless it's a true grappler like Reiko, and I mean that makes sense, right? Like even right now, unless you have a problem with it, Zangief isn't exactly like hitting lightly if all he does is strike you, right?
Which I disagree. I don't like Zangief's design in SF6.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot don't. So,
but
like, I didn't know where you were standing with that, so I just had to bring that up.
but that's mostly a mechanical thing. So like and to be fair, and I've had this conversation with Nick Ops, and when I said it to him, he was actually kind of mind blown by it, which I thought was crazy. SF6 is Street Fighter's version of MK11.
Um,
When I say that, when I say that, I'm not saying that the two are the same game. What I'm saying is a lot of the concepts from MK11, Street Fighter 6 executes better. They took the same concept and just did it better. Auto regenerate meter.
oh yeah, well, I've said that
A
before, yeah.
perfect parry system or something akin to a perfect parry system where you can kind of like steal turns or deny someone their turn. The one, it's a more mechanic driven game as opposed to a more individualized game. So a lot of the things
Right,
in the game are more homogenized. So it really reflects a lot of what MK11 conceptually was. It's just that it executes it better. And I think part of the reason or that it executes it better is that things are so much more punishing and sensical in Street Fighter 6. Like if you do a DP or a super and I block it or parry it, not only do you lose life, you also lose meter from the fact that I'm going to punish you. And if I punish you with a heavy, you lose a whole bar of meter. So if you had 3 bars of meter and you use 2 on a DP, you just burned yourself out.
right,
And
right,
being burnt out is a really, really, really big deal in Street Fighter 6, right? It's not just like in MK11 where it's like, oh, I don't have any meter. I can still do a basic combo, or I can still run away and move as fast and do this, and the frame data doesn't change. In Street Fighter
right,
6, you get burnt out, you are on death's door. I have shown clips of somebody being at 85% health and they burn themselves out, or I burn them out, and they are in a checkmate situation from that point forward. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that is one of the things I really like overall from a design philosophy standpoint about Street Fighter 6. Um, but, like, okay, so, like, trying to translate that over to MK, though, is like, I don't know, I suppose, sorry, like, give me, like, a bit more of a focused, thing related to what you're talking about to address, like, when it comes to MK1 compared to that.
so this goes back to what I said about the game being too punishing, however, not punishing enough.
Yeah,
Um, a a jab punish in MK1 will net you 43 to 50% depending on the character, right?
yeah,
Doesn't matter that I started with essentially what is a light. I started with my fastest reversal button to punish your -8 or -9 thing, right?
right,
in Street Fighter 6, you don't have that. If someone's -5 and you punish with a 4 frame light or a 5 frame light, the damage scales. So yes, it's a punish, and yes, you do get more damage because of the fact that it's a punish. You get more frame advantage, you get more opportunities for different combo routes because of the fact that it's a punish. You still are not cashing out that much, right?
Yeah.
And you
Right.
you still ultimately, as you're building your combo or going through your combo structure, you still have to make the choice between damage or Oki, right?
Right. Yeah.
In MK1, you get the damage. You can choose to get the setup and the Oki. You can choose to try to vortex the opponent after that. Like you get to have your cake and eat it too. Now, where it's not punishing enough is on the receiving end of that, me making a bad decision and getting punished only takes away the resource of life. I
Right.
lose some life for it. Now, granted, I lose a lot of life for it, but I only lose some life for it. And this could be a 1 to 2 touch game. But because of the way that meter builds in the game, I'm always going to have, or almost always going to have enough meter to break away or do wake up armor reversal,
Right.
which armor reversals I also disagree with. I think they should move more toward, again, so a lot of my gripes with MK1 have to do with the fact that it looked at what every other fighting game generally does and said we're not going to do that. And I know that's like an NRS thing, like they've always
Yeah.
kind
It's
of done that.
interesting. Yeah.
But if everyone does things because it's something that consistently has worked, maybe you should fall in line too. And I'm not saying that you have to make a Street Fighter clone. I'm not saying
Right.
that. I'm saying that there are a lot of concepts from Street Fighter, from Tekken, that you simply just have to adopt because they are tried and true methods of developing a fighting game.
Right. Yeah. No,
You're
I've said
you're
that
looking
same
at
thing
this,
before. Yeah.
yeah, you're looking at the status quo and saying, "Hey, we're not going to do that." And then everyone buys your game, they flock to your game because of the name associated with it or because of the high, unfortunately, of MKX and saying, "Oh, this is, I remember MKX, it was one of the greatest games ever." And then they buy it and they go, "This is crap," or they don't play it after the first 30 days, or the sales for the DLC come out and there's like, "Oh, this sold so much less than the original game." And it's like there's a reason for that. It's because you're trying to fight against the status quo to make something different that doesn't need to be different. You're making something different for the sake of being different. It doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah. I think that Ed Boon might like really overestimate how attached to certain things about the games that people are. Like this is more of an aesthetic thing, right? But like a thing that I always go back to, and I talked to Tom about this, is fatalities, right? They've kind of outdone the fatality in a way that is both just as effective and it doesn't waste time, and it's just the brutalities. Why even bother having fatalities at all? Like, I would think switching over entirely to brutalities, period, would be the best way to go.
I have
Um,
said that in the essence of keeping certain things locked behind like just execution or decision making,
but it's
which
like, yeah, it's
you
like,
know
I was gonna say something that was gonna be related to that too. Yeah. Let me get my head on straight here. What was I gonna say exactly? Oh yeah, I was gonna say. So like, for example, they like are really attached to the block button, right? A block button in a 2D game. And maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. I want you to tell me what actual gameplay utility or benefit does having a 2D fighter with a block button actually accomplish that makes
I can tell you.
MK somehow unique?
I can tell you, and it's something that I don't like about MK1 or
Okay.
or even MK11. Like don't get me wrong, I loved wave dashing with Fujin. It was fun. But you take away the ability for your opponent to check your dash, which I super disagree with. I hate that. So I don't know if you remember this. When MK1 first came out, or actually during the beta, one of the biggest complaints that Sonic Fox had was that there was no block dashing or wave dashing. He was like, "Hey, just so everybody knows, dashing is a lot more committal in this game. If you dash, there's no way to cancel it into anything. You dash, and it's just a dash.
By the way, that's why
And
Injustice 2 is the best NRS game, fundamentally speaking.
um,
There was
so he,
nothing in that game that felt better than someone dashing in and you literally whiff punish the end recovery frames of their forward dash.
it's it's checking movement. It's a fundamental
Yeah.
part of playing
Oh,
footsie.
hold on 1 minute. I'm coming up on the timer. I'm gonna cut it here and then start recording again. Hold
Okay.
on.